Welcome to the program. We continue with this show right on Good Morning Kenya. I'm seeing lots of comments. T. Doreen is saying, watching us from Kitale already, joining in the team. I can see there Ndong Kevo is watching us live from Hurlingham, Nairobi. Thank you so much for being a part of this show. We continue with this morning broadcast right here. Good Morning Kenya is the place to be each and every morning. My name is Ram Aguko, if you've just joined us. And now we shift gears into matters concerning investing in higher education abroad. Have you ever wondered, what does it take for me to go study outside the country? Have you ever thought about taking your further studies abroad? Well, this conversation is for you. My guest is somebody many of us know. If you haven't known him yet, well, today you are going to meet him for the very first time. He goes by the name Bob Mwiti. He is the director of Kenya Airlift Program. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
And thank you so much for coming. Those who have not heard of Bob, I know there are those who have been following him on social media. You have fans even here in studio. I don't know if you've met my brother there.
Yes, I have.
Taking the picture there.
Mogaka, yes.
Mogaka. He's a loyal fan.
Yes.
Bob, tell us something a bit more about, for those who are interacting with you for the first time, about Kenya Airlift Program and what it's all about.
All right. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here and talk to Kenyans. My name is Bob Mwiti. I live and work in the U.S. I've been there for the last 14 years. So I went there as a student.
As a student?
As a master's student in 2009. Yeah, and I do the managing director of an initiative called the Kenya Airlift Program. And basically what we do is we help mostly bright Kenyan students to pursue graduate studies abroad. We facilitate their finances because that process of going and studying abroad is quite expensive.
Yes.
And we help that. And of course also we do career support because also when you go and to study abroad, you have to figure out how do you get jobs, you know, things like those. And also even if you come back to Kenya, how do you get back and be able to get into the job market? So we help with career support as well. So that's really what we do in a nutshell.
All right, all right. And for those who do not know him, maybe can engage with him. How can someone find you on online, on social media, if they want to get a hold of you?
I'm quite active on social media. My social media handles on Facebook, it's Bob Mwiti, Instagram, Bob Mwiti. I think I'm on Twitter, Bob Mwiti. TikTok, Niko Uko, my team has opened an account for me, but sijaingia huko.
Are you dancing there?
Nasikia kuna vituko sana huko.
Kuna vituko sana huko. We want to do so many things.
Yes.
But that is social media for you.
Yes.
But now let's talk about this elephant in the room. There are many who have desired to study abroad.
Yes.
And I know this conversation is going to touch somebody today. But now, many are still skeptical. Yes, there are those who desire to study abroad, but there are those who are skeptical about it. Is studying abroad an investment that Kenyans should consider if they're able to?
I know studying abroad is very challenging. I think a lot of people out there, they actually don't really know how to go about it. And it's quite costly. If you really want to go there and you come from a typical, Kenyan family, it can be very challenging because typically, for example, I went to study my master's, and especially for the US, for a master's program, you probably need about close to 5 million Kenya shillings to study.
5 million?
Yeah. 5 million Kenya shillings for the 2 years as a master's student.
And is that a maximum limit or just the bare minimum?
Averagely. It also depends with what kind of program are you going to study. You know, there are some programs that are quite expensive. Maybe a program like medicine would cost even more than that. But generally, around 5 million.
So somebody this morning should just say, I can just give up on this. They just give up. Do we give up on our dreams now? 5 million shillings.
5 million shillings.
Kind of money?
Yeah. But you actually don't you don't need to give up because there is options. You know, there is ways that you can be able to raise that kind of money. So key thing when you think of going and studying abroad is, whatever, because this is an investment. Yeah?
Yes.
If you're talking of 5 million, if I put in 5 million, what do I get after that, you know? Are there opportunities there? Maybe once you go there and get your degree, is it marketable enough for you to be able to recoup what you really invested in it. Whether, and not just necessarily on the other side, even back home, because actually we actually need these guys who are going there, especially those who, because like for us, we normally deal with those who want to go and do technology-related master's program. We need these skills back home because this is where really those skills are needed. So you also have to ask yourself, like when I come back home now, will I be able to recoup, you know, the 5 million or whatever I've spent going and studying abroad? So those are some of the questions that you have to ask yourself as a, you know, as a student. And think of, if you don't have the 5 million, you think of ways of that where you can be able to raise that 5 million, and there's ways to do that actually.
Now, in the world of today, we live in an era where there is a lot of conmanship.
Yes.
A lot of people getting duped. You desire to study online and you do not know the way to follow, the procedure, not to study online, abroad, sorry. You desire to study abroad, but you don't know the procedure that can enable you to do that in a manner that is safe, in a manner that doesn't infringe on your security and doesn't get you duped or conned in a way you end up losing a lot of money. Give me this procedure that is there, that Kenyans should follow. And is it the same that you used during a time when you went there?
In my case, when I went there, actually, for me, it was more or less like try and error. I really didn't know exactly what I needed to do. One, if you're going, let's say, for example, you're going as a master's student like I went, one of the most schools out there, they will require you to do some exams. For me, I did an exam called GMAT, Graduate Management Admissions Test. It's an exam that tests your IQ levels. Could test Kizungu na mathematics.
Is it a physical exam?
Yeah, it's a physical. There's usually centers where you can take the exam physically. There's one center here in Nairobi, on Westlands. In Westlands, there's GMAT. That's for those students who want to do graduate studies that are related to business. And if you're doing something that is science related, you do an exam called GRE. So you have to figure out, you know, how do you now sit for those exams, how much it costs, because it's not free. GMAT costs $250. So that's about what, 30,000? Yeah, around that.
Somebody take the calculate $250, and that is by then during your time.
Even now. Then I think it was like 200. Now it's 250.
Now it's 250.
Yeah, and I think GRE is around 2 something. Yeah.
Oh, so exams are a must.
It depends also with the school. There are some schools that require you to do those exams. There are other schools that waive them.
Yes.
So it all depends. Which school do you want to go? How do you figure out? Because like for me, I didn't know. I was just going on the internet, and those days even the internet was not that great. So I'll go and search for schools. You have to figure out how much they cost, whether you can afford that school or not. Because even for you to be able to travel and get the visa, actually you have to show that you have funding for the first 1 year of your studies.
Hold on. You've gone so fast. Let me take a few steps behind. Let's rewind. Let's go back. The very first step for me as a parent to get my child to study abroad, or for me as a student to go study abroad, what is it? The first step?
Well, the first step is basically to figure out what you are going to study.
What you're going to study.
Yeah. Are you going for a master's, or are you going for undergrad, and which course?
And where do you get the universities that offer these particular courses?
Yes, so you want to study this program. Now, which universities are out there that actually are able to give you what you really want? So you have to look for those universities. There's quite a number of them, especially for the US. Actually, US has thousands and thousands of universities. So, but it can also be very challenging because you don't know which one is which, because there's so many, so many options. And that's why
you haven't even heard of.
You've never heard of them. You're just Googling. You don't know whether, some of them, whether they are real or not. So that's also where maybe you need someone who is an expert, who can be able to guide you through on which universities, which course. Because sometimes also, remember, at that age when you're going to study abroad, you are maybe in your early 20s, right? And sometimes also you've not even figured out what exactly you want. And that's also when you really need someone who is an expert, who should be able to guide you on your career, which programs to take. And another thing that you also need to worry about is, because when you go to the other side, side, there's usually something you are given, which is a work authorization after you are done with school. And depending with the course that you do, your work authorization can be for 1 year or can be for 3 years. And a lot of people don't know that. Like, for example, I went to do an MBA. MBA gave me 1 year of work authorization. But actually, there is some courses out there that would give you up to 3 years of work authorization, which is a big deal. Because when you go on the other side as a student, you have to figure out how, if you really want to live and work there, you have to figure out how do you transition from being on a student visa. And that work authorization gives you enough time to be able to figure things out. You know? Now, you asked about how do you maybe find out, you know, like who can be able to support you in this whole process. I think there's a lot of agencies out there, even here in Kenya, that help, you know, Kenyans to go and study abroad. But also...
Remember, we are avoiding conmen.
So that's the problem. Yes. So I think you have to do your due diligence, you know, check out, maybe are they even certified by
How can I know that this is the right person to help me and they won't dupe me of my money?
I think it's more to do with your doing more research, especially, you know, now we have the internet. You have internet, and everybody is able to access the internet. You can be able to figure these things out. You can do your due diligence, go on YouTube, go on Google, check out these agencies, check out what they've done, some of the beneficiaries they've been able to take abroad, and maybe that should give you a clue of whether they are genuine people or not. Because sometimes if you call them, they'll just tell you good, nice things, but you may not. They may end up not being able, being the right people for you to help you go abroad as a student.
So get to know the course you want to do. Get to know the university you want to do it at.
Yes.
Get a good agent.
Yes.
Or agent.
And now start the process now. Apply one. Once you start for the exam, make sure that you know what the school requires in terms of the score. Because, for example, an exam like GMAT, you know, the score is between 200 and 800. 800 as a maximum. Most schools out there, really good state universities, will require you to score at least a 500. So if you don't really even know what score you are supposed to get for the schools that you are going, you're going to go apply to the school. And actually, even applying to the school costs money. You apply to the school and then the school rejects you. So you might find you've spent like 10,000 Kenya shillings just applying to a school with a very low score of your GMAT, and you end up not getting to that school. So the good thing with having someone who is guiding you through the process, an expert, is because they'll know this school requires this type of score and for this program, and in as much as you're going to study for that course, I mean for that exam, let's say GMAT or GRE, make sure that you are getting at least the minimum that is required by the school.
Now Mwiti, I'm looking at what we have in the country. We know right now there's a conversation about the education sector in Kenya.
Yes.
Now, when somebody chooses a school, it could be primary, high school, or the tertiary level, they always select based on what is considered to be the best school. If I want to do a course in medicine, in Kenya we know that there are those who prefer certain universities.
Yes.
If I want to do journalism, you prefer certain universities because we consider those universities to be the best in that particular course.
Correct.
Does it apply also for schools in the US?
Well, not really. What matters is, you see, let's say, for example, you're going as a master's student like I went.
Yes.
I went to a school called Indiana University of Pennsylvania. It's a state university located in the state of Pennsylvania. And if you rank it with other universities in the US, it comes to around almost 2,000. Number 2,000 in the US. But it's a good state university.
It's a good university.
It's a good university, but the ranking is like 2,000 something.
Wow.
Yeah. But you see, when it comes to getting jobs, most of the time what the employers out there are looking for is, do you have the skills or not? Not necessarily you went
where you went.
No,
where
not
you studied at.
No. You can find I've seen people who went to Yale, Harvard, struggling actually getting jobs, you know. But not to say that, you know, those are bad schools. I mean, of course, the name, if you went to Harvard, you know. Yeah, so, but generally, what I can advise anybody who is out there and they really want to go and study, especially those who want to go and study in the US, because that's really where I've lived and that's where I went to school, just look for state universities. Those are usually good. You know, they have a good name. Hata ukisikia shule atijui iko na ranking ya 5,000. US kuna universities, I think, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 or 10.
Chukua hiyo shule ba.
Chukua. As long as it's a good state university, chukua hiyo and you'll get your degree and you should be able to get a job.
Mchagua jembe si mkulima.
Mchagua jembe si mkulima, yes, as they say.
If you have any questions, I invite you and I welcome you to be part of this conversation. All right? The hashtag is Good Morning Kenya at Rambaguko and at KBC Channel 1. Keep engaging with us. Ask those questions. Do you want to invest in higher education abroad? Now, Mwiti, you mentioned the process, and that's okay. Now, what are those common mistakes people make when they are applying for these student visas and getting to these universities? These mistakes that you've managed to come across in this particular area.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of mistakes that a lot of our students make. One of them is the issue of funding, which is a big problem. I think it's the elephant in the room when it comes to studying abroad. Remember we talked about the 5 million. So where do you get that 5 million? Yes. So what I've seen a lot of people do is that they usually go approach somebody. Let's say, for example, like you. I come to you and say, maybe you're my uncle or I know you. I ask, do you have maybe bank statement that can help me so that I can be able to present to the school to show that I can be able to support my education?
Wrong move?
Wrong move. Really wrong move. Because even if you get a bank statement, let's say, for example, you've gotten a bank statement of 5 million. You presented it to the school gives you the approval and gives you the immigration document to take to the embassy for the visa. And then you go to the embassy and present the same document saying, hey, my uncle is supporting me. And yet, all you have is basically the document. But
the money, sir.
The money is not there.
You will suffer.
And the mistake that people make is to assume that you'll go on the other side and you'll be able to figure out where to get that money. A lot of people think once you go abroad, you'll be able to work and pay for your school fees. Now, what people don't realize is that you are only, especially in the US, you're only allowed to work 20 hours a week. That basically means you're working part-time. And you're only allowed to work on campus.
So for students, 20 hours.
20 hours
a
week.
A week.
A week.
So did I say a day?
You said a day.
A week.
So that's 4 hours a day if you're working for 5 days. If you're working 7 days, you can do the math. But 20 hours a week.
A week.
Yeah, that's part-time. And another thing, most of because I've told you, you're only allowed to work on campus.
Yes.
So most of the jobs that you can be able to find on campus, they are not really well-paying jobs. They pay you minimum. They are limited and they pay you very little. You get paid like minimum wage. Now, for example, I live in the state of Florida. I think our minimum wage right now is around 8 or 9. I'm not very sure. Minimum wage. And so if you're getting paid, let's say, for example, $8 an hour, and you've worked for 20 hours, that's $160 a week. Now, imagine wewe ulipatiana bank statement hapa, ukaenda huko, so school fees inakungoja, ya how many? Ya 5 million in 2 years. Let's say, for example, now 5 million is 2.5 per year. So, uko na school fees ya 2.5 per year, yenye unafaa ulipe, na una hiyo pesa because ulipatiana bank statement. So, where will you get the money? So, what happens is, most of the time, unaona mtu ameenda, ana school fees, the moment sasa amefika huko, na hawezi fanya job, because umesikia ana earn $160 in a week, 160 in a month, hata ufikishi pesa mingi. How will you be able to sort your school fees and living expenses? Accommodation in America as a student, if you take a shared accommodation, let's say, for example, a 4-bedroom apartment, mko na student wengine hapo, mna share bathroom, mna share kitchen, you'll pay around $500-600 on a monthly basis as your rent. Hiyo pesa itatoka wapi? Na bado ni hapa tu unafanya kazi na una school fees. So that's why you find a lot of our students wanaenda huko wanakwama, and the moment you don't attend classes, you are basically out of status, which means you are in the US illegally. You are given 5-year visa, but actually when you go on the other side, having a visa means nothing. kama actually uko shule. You need to be in school and taking at least the minimum required units.
What?
Yes, as a student. Otherwise, even if you take the units, maybe some of them you drop because you don't have enough money, because normally school fees is paid per unit. And unachukua.
Yes,
Si kama hapa unaambiwa, this semester you are doing 7. Hapana, uko, ni units ngapi unataka kufanya wewe mwenyewe as a student. At a minimum you should take 3, at a maximum 5. So the bare minimum is 3. Na hiyo minimum 3 unachajua per unit. So unaona maybe mngependa kufanya hata moja because hauna pesa. But you can't do one because the moment you go below the 3 units, you are basically an illegal immigrant.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Unaenda ngambo unakwama.
So that's because really one of
you made a mistake of getting a bank statement of
bank statement. Yeah. Umechukua bank statement, umepresent, umeenda.
Mwiti, help me understand. If I want to study abroad, then you need a bank statement that has some good money. What should I do then?
Well, there's options there, and actually that's also even where we come as a Kenya Alif program. We finance that process. In fact, actually for the Kenya Alif program, we finance the relocation, tuition, and living expenses. Now, for the relocation, you see, in as much as you might get the funding on the other side, let's say you had to umepata scholarship. If you've gotten the scholarship on the other side, your process to move from Kenya and land in the US actually requires money. Because you need money for the air tickets, you need money for the exams that you've talked about, you need money for the visa fees, there's money for something called service fee, you may need to do some, medical, and it costs money. And so, as the Kenya Alif program, we facilitate that relocation process for the students who come through the program, and of course, the tuition fees. We also finance that through a combination of unsecured international student loans and also some waivers that we get from the universities that we work with. We have partnerships with the universities in the US. And that's how you are able to now to pay for your school fees and also living expenses. Because I told you living expenses also is a big challenge for our students.
All right, let's get to matters concerning employment. I'm seeing time is really moving fast through this morning. Employment. Yeah. So I want to stay in the US. I have managed to move from Kenya. I've moved to the US because of my master's program.
Yes.
Now, I want to extend my stay and continue living in the US as I work. Is that a possibility? Is it an option?
Yes, it is. So when you go to the US as a student, the US government actually gives you an opportunity to look for jobs once you are done with school. I earlier said that there is a work authorization you are given of 1 year up to 3 years, depending with the course that you do. Yes. There are courses that are usually called STEM courses. A course that is designated as a STEM basically means that course is a science, technology, engineering, or mathematics program.
Yes.
That kind of program will give you up to 3 years of post-graduation work authorization, which is a big deal because that gives you enough time to figure out if you really, because of course a lot of our people, they want to go there, take the opportunity that are there and maybe work a little bit and then come back. So you find if you get 3 years of post-graduation work authorization, that gives you enough time to figure out now how to live there long term. Now, the key thing here is when you graduate from school as a student, the first 2 months, the first 60 days of your graduation, you must find somewhere where you can work.
Wait.
Where you can do something.
Are you saying that the student visa I acquired doesn't end there, doesn't expire? Because there are those that, say that after you're done, after you've graduated, come back to your home country and then find other ways of going back abroad.
It doesn't.
You can extend it.
It doesn't expire immediately. You are done with school because a master's program will actually take you around 18 months. But actually, when you leave Kenya, you're given a visa of 5 years. 5 years.
So categorically, we're talking about the US, ladies and gentlemen. Let's not confuse things.
We're talking about the US here because I also like talking about the US mostly because that's really where I've been and that's where I went as a student.
So they give you 5 years.
They give you the visa for 5 years.
So the student visa is not restricted to the master's program duration.
Not really, because your master's can actually be even for 1 year. We have students who graduate within a year and you are good, but your visa is for 5 years. But like I said, having a visa means nothing if you're on the other side and you're not going to school and you're not doing the other things that are needed to be done.
It's useless.
It's useless. The visa here, the one that you get, is basically for you to land at one of the airports in the US and for the immigration officers to accept you to get into the country.
Okay.
Once you are in, you actually have to maintain your status as a student, which means you take the right courses, the minimum, at least the minimum courses. And now, when you're about to graduate, the first 2 months, you must find somewhere where you can work. If you don't have anywhere, the first 60 days, you're supposed to go back. Hata kama ulikuwa na visa 5 years, you are supposed to come back.
Will they deport you?
If you don't come back, there are chances that, well, I can't say they will deport you, but because you see now, if you don't have anything, you are basically there illegally. You are not a student. You are not working. You are not, like, no one knows where you are. Okay, and that's usually a big challenge to a lot of our people. In fact, these are some of the things that we usually don't talk a lot more about it. But generally, at least 30% of Africans in the US, they are there without the right documents to live and work there. And guess what?
You believe so?
Yes, those are research that is out there. At least 30% of our people, they don't have the right document to live there. And the most interesting thing is most of those people went there as students. So walienda kama student, but they were not able to figure that out. How to transition. Now, umekuwa student, how do you get a job within those 60 days? And also, another thing. Now, for you to get the long term, remember, nimekuambia utapewa tu work authorization 1 to 3 years, depending on the course. But still, most people want to stay beyond the 3 years or beyond 1 year.
Yes.
But how do you go about that? For that, you need actually to find a company that is willing to sponsor you. And now for a company to sponsor you, they have to prove to the US government that you have skills that Americans don't have. Unaona sasa kwenye kumekuwa na kizungumkuti.
Hapo sasa.
Hapo.
Proving that you have something they don't have.
You have to show that you have the skills that Americans don't have. Otherwise, your petition won't go through. And you can't sponsor yourself. You have to find a company that can actually do that for you. So that's why a lot of our people get into troubles. You can't find a company that is willing to sponsor because maybe kitu yenye umesoma ama skills zenye uko nazo ziko na kila mtu. Kama mimi, by the way, I was struggling. Me, I had to extend school by 1 semester. Mimi nilikuwa nimeenda kufanya huko MBA. Hapa nilikuwa nimefanya BCom, Finance and Accounting from Strath.
Yes.
I thought I would become an accountant. But you see also, there are so many accountants in America who are actually looking for jobs.
What makes you different from them?
What makes you different from them? Kwanza una experience. Mimi huku Kenya, mimi nilikuwa teller. I used to work for Equity Bank, by the way. Hapa 2ST. Nilifanya hapo for about 6 months before sasa niende after graduate. So, job kama ya teller, for example, hiyo nilikuwa nimefanya hapa kama graduate. Yes. Do you know your job huko US ni job yenye inafanywa na mtu mwenye ako na high school diploma?
Na huko hapa Kenya unajivunia.
Hapa Kenya unajivunia. So now if it's a job that can be done by someone who has just a high school diploma, sasa hiyo utaambia sasa kampuni kusponsor ads, and that's a skill that almost everybody has.
My goodness.
Unaona? So it's a big challenge. So anybody who is out there and they really want to go and succeed, they have to know all these things. You can't just go blindly, because that's really what happens even with so many of them, and even with me when I went there.
Now Mwiti, there's a question by Kevin. Can I be working in the US and opt to do my online masters in Kenya as a cheaper option?
Work in the US, do online in Kenya? Why did you go to the US in the first place?
Unless it's the other way around.
Ama maybe you are studying online in a university that is in the US and work. Yo, swali maybe.
But swali ameuliza, can I be working in the US and opt to do my online masters in Kenya as a cheaper option?
You see, for you to work in the US,
because masters in.
You see, there's online classes,
Yes.
But you're kusema ati work in the US. You can't work in the US if you don't really have the work. Hata kama ni online, hata kama ni remote job, you still have to have some form of authorization for you to actually be able to work.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think maybe the question is a little bit not very clear.
Not very clear.
Yeah.
What about? Okay. So, but maybe you can ask that question again for us to get to understand.
Yep.
Let me read. This is Franklin is saying US and UK are different. They always give 5 years, unlike the UK.
UK, right. I don't even know how many years the UK gives. By the way, no, I tried to go to the UK. I was denied visa 4 times.
Why?
I don't know. And
it's a complicated process.
It's not really you see, that's also where someone who knows this whole process comes in and can help you, because you don't know what to expect. Mimi nilikuwa naenda hiyo embassy, sijui hata kuongea. By the way, I grew up in a very humble family back in the village. Mi mezaliwa huko Meru, nimeenda local public primary school. Kizungu hata ilikuwa shida kwangu. Hakuna. Sasa mimi naenda hapo embassy bana, nakutana na wazungu na ni interview. You know, I'm not able to articulate the reasons why I'm going there, and that's why I was getting denied. You know, but at least when you have someone who tells you, okay, this is how you need to go about it, this is how you present yourself, this is how you talk, this is how you say what you are going to study, you're going to get the visa. But now, the problem with the UK right now as we speak, akunanga story as physical visa interview. Actually, I think you present your document somewhere in, I don't know, I think in Westland somewhere. And then wanaangalia tu, so make sure your documents are good. Alafu unaenda una present, after a few days wanafanya, alafu wanakupea ama wanakunyima.
Let's come back to the conversation. We are talking about now US, still on the same, because I love the trajectory of the conversation. So we are looking at interviews.
Yes.
So process of succeeding in an interview. Tell me about that. How can I make sure that when I go there, I answer the right questions, or I answer questions in the right way?
Now, one of the things that you really need to understand is that going to the embassy is very nerve-wracking.
Yes.
There will always be butterflies, you know, men, you know, but having the right preparation is key because, one, there's the way you present, even before you talk to somebody. If I come here for an interview, even before I talk, you can be impressed by the way I approach, the confidence, the way you know, those kind of things. Yes. Very, very important. Yes. And these are the things that people, they assume maybe they are not very necessary when it comes to interviews, but it's very, very important. Even the way you wear, you go to that visa interview, it matters a lot. And now, of course, you have to be able to tell the visa officer where you're going to study, what you are going to study, why that program, why that course. Why are you going to the US and not do it here in Kenya, for example? Why do you have to do it there? Now, if you have financing, like for example, we finance our students through student loans. Our students, they don't have to go with bank statements, like the way we talked about bank statement earlier.
Okay.
So if you have let's say for example, you have a student loan, how do you intend to repay this loan? Now, key thing, when you're going to look for a visa that is non-immigrant, which actually the student visa falls into that category, a non-immigrant visa, you have to prove your ties back in your country and show that you will be coming back. Because it's a non-immigrant. You are not going there to stay.
So you're not applying for a student visa?
It's a student visa, but a student visa is categorized as a non-immigrant visa, which means you have to prove to the visa officer that you have intentions of coming back, because this is not an immigrant visa, it's a non-immigrant. Uende ufanye kenye unaenda fanya huko urudi. So how do you prove that? Yes, how do you prove that? You know, you have to show ties. For you to prove that, you have to show ties back to your country.
So you must prepare towards answering these questions.
And I always tell people, it's not just a matter of just giving the answer. It's how do you give that answer? How are you articulating the reasons why you are going to study? How are you giving that answer?
All right, Mwiti, what about family? I want to study abroad, but I have dependents. I have a spouse. I have children. What do I do?
Actually, the beauty of going to study as a student is that you can also take your family, your spouse and kids. But the catch here is, you also have to show, you can't just, a spouse, as a dependent, if you go there as a spouse, or a dependent for that matter, spouse, kids and all that, you are not allowed to work.
As a spouse?
As a spouse, or kids, you are not allowed to work. You are not allowed to work, so you're going to be staying there at home. That is the expectation. Now, the student, the primary person who is applying for the visa, in this case, who is a student, they have to show, one, to the school that he has the money or she has the money to support you as a spouse and your kids, or extra on top of what was required as a student, extra money for the spouse and kids. Secondly, also at the embassy. Ukienda sasa kwa visa, utaulizwa, why do you want to go there as a spouse, and yet hata huko utakuwa unakaa chini, utakaa nyumbani, hakuna kitu unafanya. In fact actually watakuuliza utakuwa unafanya nini,
so
during the time that the other person is going to school. What will you be doing?
But you won't succeed in that particular interview.
Well, that's why I was telling you that you need to know how to express yourself and say the reasons why and what you're going to be doing around that time. Utakuwa unakaa chini? Hapana, hakuna kitu unafanya, because you are not allowed. Ukianza kusema sijui nini, I'll start looking for a job because now I don't have anything to do. X. Hakuna visa. So those are some of the things that you really need to know.
Mwiti, thank you so much for coming.
No problem.
We have to end it there.
Asante sana.
At that point.
No problem.
Wow, yeah. It was an honor. And that is Bob Mwiti, the director of Kenya Airlift Program. There is still a lot that we can talk about. I know you have questions, and I know you've been...
I think we need to set some time again, eh?
Sindio.
Tuongee hii story iishe.
Investing in higher education. Let's take a short break, and but remember, Vivian Dego is still coming up next with a conversation about women at the forefront right here on Good Morning Kenya. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. Keep engaging with us. My name is Ram Maguko. God bless you.